Hi guys, I hope you're all well and welcome to episode 129 of the James Layton Fitness Podcast. So in this specific episode we'll be discussing what you must do to achieve your fat loss or muscle building goals. And the reason why I want to discuss this key point is essentially people typically just get caught up in the minor details. They focus on the minor details that really don't make that much of a difference to whether they achieve their fat loss or muscle building goals, and they actually miss the bigger picture. They miss these broader, more important basic principles that must be in place for them to achieve their fat loss or muscle building goals. And unfortunately, this is typically the big reasons why people are not achieving their fat loss or muscle building goals. They're focused on these minor details that have no real significant impact on their progress, and they miss the bigger, broader, boring, basic principles that absolutely will get you about 95 to 99% of your results. They're that important. So typically most people are focusing on things like supplementation, nutrient timing, judging meals in isolation, as opposed to looking at the bigger picture, i.e. how many calories and what protein, carbohydrate and fats you're consuming on a day-to-day basis. Now, these certainly have their place. Supplementation can have a small impact on your progress. Nutrient timing, if you're someone that trains twice per day like an endurance trainee, nutrient time is very important. But for most individuals listening to this podcast who just have goals of fat loss or muscle building, they're training once per day, and therefore nutrient timing is not as important within this context. Additionally, judging meals in isolation. This is typically what most people are doing. They're looking at meals and saying, is that meal healthy, is it not healthy, and then basing their food choice on whether they think it's healthy or not, as opposed to actually really considering how many calories they're eating on a day-to-day basis, how this meal fits into their calorie and macronutrient targets. People aren't thinking about that, and therefore you can actually be in a position where you're consuming quote-unquote healthy foods and you can ultimately not be in an energy deficit, or you can even be in an energy surplus. The reason why is we must still be, if your goal's fat loss, we must still be in that energy deficit, otherwise you will not achieve your fat loss goals, regardless of how healthy the foods you're consuming are. That's such an imperative point, and this is where most people go wrong. They focus on foods that are typically healthy, which is fine if you're an individual that has a decent amount of body fat to lose. You can pretty much apply that principle and get results, but the leaner you become, you need to apply a more tailored approach, focusing on actually tracking the calories and macronutrients, really focusing on making sure you're creating an energy deficit. So these are the broader principles I want you to focus on, which are for fat loss. Focus on the energy deficit. Again, we must be burning more calories than we're consuming to lose body fat. If you don't have this in place, you will not achieve your fat loss goals, as I mentioned, regardless of how healthy the foods you're eating are. We must have sufficient protein. Another key principle to maintain as much muscle mass within the fat loss phase as possible. We must have weight training as the foundation of our routine to again help to maintain muscle mass, and then we're also focusing on decreasing calories and or adding in more cardio when we reach a plateau to continue creating the energy deficit need for fat loss. So those are those big broad principles. I'll repeat them again. Focusing on the energy deficit, having sufficient protein, having weight training as the foundation of our routine, and then we're merely using more cardio and or decreasing calories as basically tools to bust through the fat loss plateaus. So remember, fat loss plateaus are perfectly normal. You will arrive at many plateaus throughout any given fat loss phase, and that's your cue to make a change. To either drop calories and or add in more cardio to increase energy expenditure to continue creating the energy deficit need for fat loss. Focus on those basic principles. If you do that, you will achieve your fat loss goals, as opposed to obsessing over some of these other minor details that have little or no impact on your results. Now, with regards to muscle building, these are the key principles I want you to focus on. Energy surplus first. Again, we must be consuming more calories than we're burning to muscle growth. Remember, we must be creating an energy surplus for growth. We must again have sufficient protein, and we must be focusing on a training program that focuses on progressive overload, more specifically increasing volume over time. Remember that volume is the biggest determining factor for influencing muscle growth, which is sets times reps times load. So in short, if you're getting stronger within the rep ranges you're currently doing, volume will be going up by default. Again, focus on these key principles in the muscle building phase and you will achieve some absolute incredible results. But most people aren't focusing on this within the muscle building phase. They're focusing on the pump within their training. They're focused on how they feel after the training session, as opposed to, am I actually progressively getting stronger? Is volume actually going up over time? Those are the key things that will be determining whether you're building muscle or not, as opposed to the pump, which is what a lot of people focus on within their training within a gaining phase. So hopefully this has been useful. This is all about getting back to basics, because the basic principles will get you literally 95+% of your results. They are the most important factors. Some of these minor details like supplementation, etc., can have its place and have a small impact on your progress, but must have these broader basic principles in first. So most people typically need to start focusing on nailing the basics more, as opposed to finding the next best supplement. So hopefully this has been useful. Hopefully you've enjoyed that and start applying these principles ASAP. If you're still yet to download my free ebook, How to Set Up a Nutrition Plan, if you go to James Layton, Layton fitness.co.uk, you'll see a tab at the top of the page called free ebook, and you can download that immediately. I look forward to speaking to you next week. Thank you very much.